If you've ever lost an argument, not because you were wrong, but because you got too emotional, you already understand the core of this. People who can't regulate themselves always end up giving their power away. Machiavelli knew this 500 years ago. In The Prince, he basically wrote the cheat codes for human control. Whoever stays calm stays strategic. Whoever loses their temper loses the game. Think about it. You don't remember the calm boss who handled bad news with composure. You remember the one who threw staplers and turned tables. You don't admire the partner who begged and pleaded. You respect the one who stayed cool even when they had every reason to crack. Why? Because composure signals power. Chaos signals weakness. According to Machiavelli, men are driven by two things, fear and gain. Notice he didn't say love and trust. He was brutally honest about human nature. If you want to control others, you need to either give them something to chase or something to lose. But here's the twist. You can't offer either if you're drowning in your own emotions. Emotional detachment is the shield that keeps you in the game long enough to win it. Detachment isn't about becoming a robot. Nobody respects a cold fish who has zero humanity. It's about being strategic with your emotions. Picture a poker table. The worst player is the one who grins every time they get good cards and slams the table when they get bad ones. The best player, the one you can't read. Emotional detachment is your poker face for life. You're not hiding because you're weak. You're hiding because people spend themselves trying to figure you out, while you spend your energy deciding your next move. History is full of leaders who lost everything because they couldn't control themselves. Alexander the Great conquered half the world, but one drunken rage later, he killed his closest friend, and his troops never looked at him the same again. Contrast that with someone like Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor. His empire faced plagues, wars, betrayal, yet he wrote in his private notes, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's detachment. That's why one man died regretted, and the other died respected. Bring it down to modern life. Let's say you're dating someone who loves games. They flirt, they pull back, they try to keep you guessing. The natural instinct is to chase, to prove, to demand clarity. That's the emotional trap. They feed on your reactions. The moment you send the 3-paragraph text or fire off the "why are you ignoring me" message, you've handed them control. But if you detach, if you shrug, stay calm and go about your life, they panic. Their tactics collapse because their whole power came from your emotional overreaction. Detachment turns the player into the chased. Here's where Machiavelli's brilliance cuts through the noise. He said the vulgar crowd always is taken by appearances. Translation: people aren't addicted to truth. They're addicted to perception. Detachment is perception control. Even if you're storming inside, if you look calm, you look powerful. And once people believe you're powerful, they start treating you that way. It becomes a loop. Your composure makes them uneasy. Their unease gives you leverage. Your leverage reinforces your calm. We all know someone who swears they're detached, but really they're just passive-aggressive. They give you the silent treatment for 2 hours, then slam cupboards like a cartoon character. That's not detachment, that's toddler rage. True detachment isn't about sulking. It's about radiating a calm so unsettling that other people start questioning themselves. Like, did I just mess up? Why aren't they reacting? That's when the power shifts. The beauty of emotional detachment is that it creates space between stimulus and response. Without that space, you're just a puppet of your feelings. Someone insults you, you explode. Someone withdraws, you cling. Someone rejects you, you collapse. With detachment, you have room to choose. Insult, smile, rejection. Move forward without breaking stride. And that gap between what happens to you and how you respond is where control lives. Let's circle back to Machiavelli. He didn't say rulers should never feel. He said rulers should never let their feelings dictate their moves. You can feel anger, but don't explode in anger. You can feel fear, but don't act out of fear. You can feel desire, but don't let desire blind you to strategy. The detached ruler uses emotions like tools, not chains. Imagine picking up a hammer. You hold it when you need it, put it down when you don't. That's how you hold anger, affection, even love. So why is detachment the ultimate power move? Because everyone else is ruled by impulse. Most people are walking bundles of knee-jerk reactions, scrolling when they're bored, yelling when they're triggered, clinging when they're scared. Detachment sets you apart instantly. You become the one person who isn't running on autopilot. And in a world of people who can't control themselves, the one who can always wins. To put it simply, emotional detachment is not about not caring. It's about caring strategically. It's not about coldness, it's about composure. It's not about becoming less human, it's about becoming more powerful. And once you understand that, you stop bleeding power in moments of weakness and start storing it for moments that matter. That, Machiavelli would argue, is how you survive and how you rule. Nothing destroys potential faster than a person who can't master their own emotions. Machiavelli would have laughed at half the people walking around today. Brilliant, talented, ambitious, yet sabotaging themselves because they react like toddlers in adult bodies. Start with personal development. Every self-improvement book preaches discipline and consistency. But what's the real enemy of both? Emotional impulsivity. You say you'll wake up early and work out. Alarm goes off and your brain screams, "I don't feel like it." If you can't detach from that feeling, your discipline is dead. You say you'll save money. A shiny gadget pops up on sale, and your emotions hijack logic. Goodbye savings, hello regret. Lack of emotional control keeps you stuck in cycles where every impulse has veto power over your goals. You never evolve because your emotions run your life like unpaid landlords. Now move to business and career. Emotional weakness kills credibility faster than incompetence. Picture a manager who loses their temper in every meeting. Do employees respect them? No. They tiptoe around hiding problems instead of solving them, because they know one tiny trigger will set the boss off. That leader has no control. Everyone else is controlling them by deciding when to push their buttons. Machiavelli would call that a fatal flaw. In The Prince, he warned rulers not to be hated or despised. Guess what? Nothing makes people despise you faster than watching you melt down under pressure. Even in negotiations, emotions ruin strategy. The person who wants the deal the most always pays the most. The investor who panics during a market dip sells at the bottom. The entrepreneur who can't handle criticism burns bridges that could have built empires. The employee who sulks after feedback, stuck in the same role for 10 years. Emotional detachment isn't optional in business, it's survival. The economy rewards calm, rational decision-making, not temper tantrums disguised as passion. And don't forget relationships, romantic, platonic, even family. A lack of emotional control makes you unpredictable in the worst way. You're not mysterious, you're unstable. One moment you're affectionate, the next you're exploding over a text. That inconsistency doesn't just push people away, it trains them not to trust you. Machiavelli taught that rulers must project stability even when the world is on fire, because if the people sense panic at the top, they revolt. In your personal life, the same law applies. If the people closest to you can't predict whether they'll get love or chaos, they stop investing. They revolt quietly by distancing themselves. Let's zoom out. Reputation. In today's world, reputation is currency. Lose it and opportunities dry up, and nothing trashes reputation faster than public loss of control. One angry tweet, one viral meltdown, one desperate display of neediness, and suddenly you're branded. Oh, that's the guy who begged his ex in front of everyone. That's the manager who cried during a presentation. Harsh, yes, but Machiavelli's truth wasn't designed to be comforting. He said perception is stronger than reality. People don't care if your meltdown was justified. They just remember you couldn't control yourself. Now let's talk about health. Emotional instability doesn't just kill your career and relationships, it eats you from the inside out. Chronic anger, constant anxiety, non-stop drama, these flood your system with cortisol. Over time, that stress wrecks your sleep, your focus, even your immune system. You're not just losing control of your emotions, you're handing your health over to them. But here's the kicker, and Machiavelli would love this. Lack of control makes you predictable, and predictable people are easy to manipulate. Think about casinos. Why do they keep you hooked? Because they know exactly how your dopamine will spike when you almost win. Think about toxic bosses or partners. Why do they stay in power? Because they know you'll react. They push your buttons, you dance. They withdraw, you chase. They insult, you defend. Emotional slaves are easy to rule, and Machiavelli's entire philosophy was about avoiding one thing, becoming the ruled instead of the ruler. You ever see someone get cut off in traffic, and they chase the car like it's a duel in medieval Europe? 10 minutes later, they're red-faced, screaming at a stranger, while the other driver is already at Starbucks sipping a latte. That's what lack of emotional control looks like. You're fighting wars nobody else is in, and while you're wasting energy on imaginary battles, life keeps moving. Here's the harsh reality. Lack of emotional detachment guarantees you'll live life reacting instead of directing. You'll never build wealth because your spending will be emotional. You'll never build respect because your reputation will be unstable. You'll never build influence because influence requires patience. And you'll never find peace because you'll always be at the mercy of every trigger life throws your way. Machiavelli knew rulers who couldn't control themselves didn't last. Modern life isn't different. It's just faster. A tweet replaces a royal court. A performance review replaces the battlefield. But the law remains the same. Lose your emotions, lose your power, stay detached, and you can weather storms while everyone else self-destructs. So the question isn't whether emotional control matters. The question is how long you can survive without it. Spoiler, not long. If there's one arena where emotions destroy people faster than anywhere else, it's money. Markets rise, people get greedy. Markets fall, people panic. Promotions dangle in front of employees. They chase recklessly. New toys drop, and people drain their savings for a dopamine hit that lasts 12 minutes. The truth is simple. Most people will never be wealthy or in control because their financial lives are emotional roller coasters. Machiavelli would shake his head. He warned rulers against relying on fortune without preparation, and money today is the modern battlefield where fortune tests your discipline. Let's start with the psychology. Humans are wired for loss aversion. The pain of losing is twice as powerful as the joy of gaining. That's why investors sell in panic when the stock market dips. Logic says hold, maybe even buy more, but their emotions scream, we're losing everything, and so they lock in the loss instead of riding out the storm. Emotional detachment flips this script. Detached investors don't chase the crowd, don't panic with headlines, don't fumble their plan because of fear. They wait, they strategize, they let others bleed from emotional wounds while they collect assets at a discount. The same principle applies to everyday decisions. How many people buy cars they can't afford because they want to look successful? How many sign up for debt because they couldn't detach from the emotional high of impressing strangers? Machiavelli would call this the hunger for appearances, destructive, predictable, and exploitable. Emotional detachment in wealth means you don't buy to soothe insecurity, you buy to build leverage. You don't spend to be admired, you spend to stay sovereign. There's a reason Warren Buffett repeats, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. That's just another way of saying detach. Don't let the herd's emotions dictate your moves. Machiavelli would approve, because he wrote that rulers who followed the passions of the crowd fell with them. Detached rulers and investors waited, struck at the right time, and always appeared more intelligent, simply because they weren't swept up in frenzy. But this goes beyond money. Detachment in decision-making is about how you approach all forms of risk. Imagine two entrepreneurs. One launches a business, and every setback sends them spiraling. A bad review? They lose sleep. A failed product test? They throw the whole idea away. The other entrepreneur expects chaos, detaches from the sting of failure, and calmly adjusts strategy. Guess who survives? It's not the emotional dreamer who panics at turbulence. It's the detached builder who treats turbulence as normal air. Machiavelli put it sharply. Fortune favors the prepared. Emotional detachment is preparation in its purest form. Here's where most people get it wrong. They think detachment means apathy. But in wealth and decisions, detachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring strategically. You can care about building financial independence without caring about the hype stock everyone's tweeting about. You can care about your career trajectory without caring about every minor setback or petty office drama. The detached mind separates signal from noise. Everyone else drowns in noise. You ever see someone line up overnight for the latest iPhone while they still owe 3 months of rent? That's emotional decision-making at its finest. A detached person doesn't need validation through gadgets. They'll buy the phone when it's convenient, not because Tim Cook whispered to their dopamine receptors. That's the essence of control. Not can I afford this right now, but does this serve my long-term leverage? There's also power in detachment during negotiations. Picture buying a car. The salesperson pushes, piles on extras, tries to corner you emotionally. If you're desperate, you fold. If you're detached, you stand, say, I'll think about it, and walk out. 9 times out of 10, they chase you with a better deal. Why? Because detachment communicates what Machiavelli emphasized again and again. You cannot be coerced if you show you don't need. Need is weakness. Detachment is leverage. And here's the harsh truth. Your financial future depends less on what you earn and more on how emotionally detached you are from spending and investing. Lottery winners go broke because their emotions hijack discipline. Athletes blow fortunes for the same reason. Meanwhile, The boring, emotionally detached accountant who invests steadily becomes wealthy in silence. Machiavelli would call this the paradox of fortune. Those who chase it lose it. Those who detach from it control it. Even at a macro level, governments rise and fall on the emotional control of their leaders. Panic-driven policy wrecks economies. Detached strategy stabilizes them. The same is true in your personal kingdom, your wallet. If you let fear, greed, and insecurity dictate every move, you're not ruling your money. Your money is ruling you. So here's the bottom line. Wealth and decision-making are not tests of intelligence. They're tests of detachment. Anyone can understand the logic of saving, investing, and long-term planning. But few can detach from the thrill of spending, the panic of losing, and the addiction of chasing. Machiavelli would remind you, fortune is fickle, but discipline isn't. And if you want to stay in control, you must detach, not from goals, but from the emotions that keep everyone else broke, reckless, and powerless. Now let's talk about emotional detachment in leadership and how to use emotional control to stay in power. People don't actually follow the smartest leader, the loudest voice, or even the most charismatic figure. They follow the one who radiates composure under pressure. That's why emotional detachment isn't just a trick for relationships or personal growth. It's the backbone of influence itself. Machiavelli wrote The Prince in the 16th century, but if you strip away the swords and kingdoms, what he was really describing were timeless laws of leadership, and one of his sharpest insights was this: a ruler must always appear steady, even if the world is collapsing. Why? Because human beings crave certainty. In times of chaos, people cling to whoever looks like they're in control. That's power. Not louder speeches, not grand promises, but the ability to look unshaken when everyone else is losing their head. Look at history. Winston Churchill became the voice of Britain during World War II, not because he never felt fear, he admitted privately he often did, but because he never let it leak into his leadership. His emotional detachment in public made people believe victory was possible when the evidence said otherwise. Compare that to leaders who crumble under pressure, who let rage or panic dictate their choices. They may win attention, but they lose trust. And trust, Machiavelli knew, is the currency of influence. It's the same in modern boardrooms. Picture two CEOs in a crisis. Stock prices plummet. Reporters swarm. Employees whisper layoffs. One CEO lashes out, firing staff, giving inconsistent statements, panicking in public. The other remains calm, admits challenges without fear, and lays out a plan with steady confidence. Which one attracts investors? Which one employees rally behind? Not the emotional one. Influence flows to those who hold their ground, even if they're secretly trembling inside. Here's the psychological engine behind it. Emotions are contagious. Neuroscience calls it emotional contagion. When a leader panics, everyone else's nervous system mirrors that panic. When a leader stays detached, everyone else calms down. Detachment in leadership isn't just about image. It literally rewires the group's response to chaos. People want to believe in something stable. If you can detach, you become the anchor others grab when the storm hits. Machiavelli also emphasized the importance of appearances. He famously said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Translation: your internal chaos matters less than the face you present. A detached leader doesn't need to be free of emotions. They need to be free of emotional leaks. Rage in private if you must, but when you step into the room, you radiate control. People don't follow your feelings. They follow your composure. Think of that one manager who freaks out every time the Wi-Fi goes down, pacing like the world is ending. Nobody takes them seriously. Then there's the other manager who shrugs, says, "We'll adapt," and moves forward like nothing happened. Guess whose team performs better? The Wi-Fi might be down, but the leader who doesn't collapse becomes the signal everyone tunes into. Calmness is influence. And influence isn't only about managing crises. Detachment plays a role in everyday leadership too. A detached leader doesn't play favorites because they're not ruled by personal feelings. They don't chase approval because their self-worth isn't tethered to every compliment. They can listen to criticism without spiraling. This objectivity makes their decisions feel fair, even when they're tough. People respect the one who says no calmly, far more than the one who says yes anxiously. Here's the kicker. Detachment also protects leaders from manipulation. In politics, business, even social groups, people constantly test leaders to see if they can be provoked. If you bite every bait, if you rage when criticized, sulk when opposed, or bend when flattered, you've already lost. A detached leader, on the other hand, treats both praise and insult the same, as information, not identity. And when people realize they can't sway you emotionally, they start respecting you strategically. They know you're not a puppet of approval or anger. Look at Warren Buffett. He built one of the greatest fortunes in history, not by chasing hype, but by detaching from market emotions. While others panic-sold or greedily overbought, he stayed calm, rational, detached. People listen to him today, not just because he's rich, but because he's proof that detachment in leadership outlasts emotional waves. That's Machiavelli's wisdom disguised in financial strategy. Fortune favors the calm. At the core, leadership is about control, not of others but of yourself. People can sense when a leader is emotionally fragile. They sense when decisions are fueled by ego, insecurity, or rage, and they pull away. But when they sense detachment, calm, clarity, steady vision, they lean in. They surrender trust, sometimes even power, because deep down humans want to follow someone who doesn't flinch. So if you want influence, stop trying to impress with noise, drama, or emotional fireworks. Machiavelli would laugh at that. He'd remind you rulers who lost their composure lost their crowns. The same law applies today. You don't win influence by being the loudest. You win by being the calmest voice in the room. Because in a world addicted to chaos, detachment is the rarest and therefore the most powerful form of control. Here's the mistake most people make. They think emotional detachment is a personality trait. You either have it or you don't. You're either naturally calm or too sensitive. Wrong. Detachment is a skill. It can be trained the same way you train your body at the gym. And just like lifting weights, it's not about pretending you're strong on day one. It's about building resilience through repetition until composure becomes second nature. Machiavelli would approve of this mindset. He wrote that rulers who relied on luck were doomed, while rulers who trained discipline outlasted chaos. In modern terms, stop waiting to feel less emotional. Start practicing detachment until it becomes instinct. So how do you build this skill? Let's break it down. 1. Delay your response. One of the simplest but hardest exercises is learning not to react instantly. Emotions hit like waves: anger, panic, desire. Most people ride them immediately. They text back instantly, yell instantly, buy instantly. That's why they stay powerless. Training detachment begins with inserting a pause. Someone insults you, breathe for 5 seconds before responding. A stock drops 10%, wait 24 hours before deciding. That pause is your gym rep. Every time you delay, you teach your nervous system, I am not a puppet of my first impulse. 2. Practice the art of silence. Silence is uncomfortable, and that's why it's powerful. Most people fill silence with nervous chatter, apologies, or over-explaining. Leaders, strategists, even skilled negotiators weaponize silence. Here's an exercise. In your next conversation, resist the urge to fill every gap. Let the pause linger. Notice how the other person squirms, reveals more, or adjusts their tone. Machiavelli would grin at this. It's power without saying a word. The more you practice silence, the more natural it becomes to detach in moments when others expect emotional outbursts. 3. Reframe criticism. Detachment isn't about not caring when people attack you. It's about caring selectively. Criticism hurts because we personalize it. They're rejecting me. But what if you reframed criticism as data? A detached mind doesn't hear "you're worthless." It hears "interesting, here's how this person perceives me." Big difference. Next time you get criticized, write it down and analyze it later. Separate emotion from information. The practice rewires your brain to see feedback as input, not identity. 4. Journal the emotional gap. Here's a tool almost nobody uses. At the end of each day, write down one moment where you reacted emotionally. Then ask, what would a detached version of me have done? By visualizing the alternative, you create a blueprint for next time. Over weeks, you'll notice your real-life reactions start matching the detached responses you imagined. Machiavelli would call this preparing in peace for war, training your mind before the battlefield arrives. 5. Expose yourself to controlled discomfort. Emotional detachment thrives on tolerance for discomfort. Most people avoid it. They scroll when bored, lash out when criticized, buy when insecure. Training detachment means deliberately sitting with discomfort until it loses its power. Try fasting for 12 hours. Try sitting in a room without your phone for 30 minutes. Try hearing someone insult you without responding. These micro-tests toughen you. Each one proves you can endure without collapsing. The stronger your tolerance, the less control emotions have over you. 6. Build competing priorities. Detachment is easier when your life is full. If the only thing you care about is one person, one job, one outcome, of course emotions will consume you. The detached individual diversifies their identity. They have passions, goals, routines, friendships. That way, when one area shakes, they don't collapse. They pivot. Machiavelli warned rulers never to rely on one ally alone. The same law applies to you. Build a life so full that no single loss can destroy your composure. 7. Study and observe, without reacting. Train yourself to be the watcher. Next time someone tries to provoke you, coworker, partner, stranger in traffic, don't react. Just observe. Notice their tone, their posture, their words. Pretend you're a scientist studying behavior. That mental shift, observation over reaction, is detachment in real time. It makes you less of a participant, more of a strategist, and strategists win. Imagine you're in line at Starbucks. Someone cuts in front of you, and instead of going full Hulk, you just raise an eyebrow and smirk. Inside, you're testing yourself. Can I stay calm? Can I let them expose their own lack of control? Suddenly, you're not a victim. You're in the gym, lifting emotional weights. And the best part, everyone watching thinks you're the composed one, while the other person looks like a clown. The point is this: detachment isn't learnt by reading about it. It's forged in small daily reps. Delaying texts, holding silence, reframing criticism, sitting in discomfort, journaling gaps, building priorities, observing over reacting. Every practice chips away at impulsivity and builds the muscle of composure. Machiavelli knew rulers didn't win because they were the strongest. They won because they were the most prepared. Your preparation is emotional training, because the truth is, life will throw chaos at you. Betrayals, losses, failures. If you train detachment daily, those storms won't break you. They'll expose everyone else while you remain unshaken. And that's the difference between being ruled by your emotions and ruling through them. Detachment isn't just a survival tool for daily life. It's the foundation for how you'll be remembered. Think about the people you admire most. Leaders, mentors, even family members. Odds are what you respected wasn't that they never felt fear or anger. They never let those emotions run them off course. Their steadiness under pressure, their calm in chaos, that's what earned your respect. That's legacy. Machiavelli would argue that people don't remember what you felt. They remember how you acted when everyone else fell apart. The long-term effect of emotional detachment is clarity. When you stop living at the mercy of every emotional impulse, your decisions become sharper. You don't waste years chasing relationships that drain you, jobs that insult you, or lifestyles that impress no one. You don't gamble away your wealth because of greed, or burn bridges because of anger. Detached people leave behind a trail of consistency, and consistency over time looks like wisdom. Machiavelli knew power was about perception, but he also knew rulers who couldn't detach from pride destroyed themselves. Legacy belongs to those who detach from the need to win every small battle so they can win the war. So, when you think of emotional detachment, don't see it as a trick for arguments or negotiations. See it as a lifelong practice. Every time you choose composure over chaos, you're not just winning the moment, you're building the story people will tell about you. You're shaping the memory that outlives you. Because at the end of it all, control isn't just about ruling others. It's about ruling yourself. And the person who can master that leaves behind the only kind of legacy that truly matters. Not noise, not panic, not drama, but calm strength that others still feel long after you're gone.